big thank you to the candidates for introducing themselves. In the weeks leading up to this event, we invited people to send in questions by email, and on Friday last week we looked at the questions which we have received, and we had 18 questions. We reduced those down to 7. We ruled a few out and we combined some others and did some editing, and so we now have 7 questions that we're going to put to each of the candidates. The first one is on the environment, and I should say that the environment was the largest polling theme amongst the questions. A number of environmental questions into one. So this is the question, and the candidates have seen it in advance. How do you personally reconcile the aspects of your party's manifesto and policies which encourage business growth and higher consumer expectations with the need, on the other hand, urgently to address the climate emergency? And we'll ask Jeff to address that one first.
Well, firstly, I have to say that I'm not sure that the terms of that particular question is I recognise, because my party does not see that we're promoting economic growth of materials in the way that is implied by the question. Clearly, we can't forever go around the world in our tin cans. We can't. We try to encourage, nudge behaviour towards the good things, the things that will limit emissions, cut use of fossil fuels, and for example, our policies is to increase air tax on frequent flyers. That is one of the things that we would do. So that's an encouragement on one side. But also, we want to promote development of products and services that actually benefit the environment. Through my university, my old university, I'm aware of a number of projects, such as, so you have targets, that's one thing, but you need some substance behind that. As I say, I'm aware of a number of interesting projects that take place in my university, such as research of biodegradable plastics, extraction of plastics from rivers, things like that, which will in fact develop into products that will actually be used. And they're the sort of projects that will be funded by the Green Investment Bank that I spoke about before, and actually provide very good jobs, worthwhile jobs, as well as saving the planet. You asked me about my personal reconciliation with my climate policy. One of the proudest things that I have done in my work, not politically, I was asked to assess a project in North Borneo some years ago where they were actually going to cover part of it, many, many hectares, in concrete. They were going to put up 10 massive tourism hotels, Disneyland, golf courses, conference centres, and it really would have actually destroyed the very thing that people are going to see in a place like Borneo. And I was actually able to persuade my clients are World Bank, but the government, which was determined it wanted to increase tourism by 20-fold, to move towards soft development. So we ended up with water village hotels. We did not tear down the mangroves, which would have led to coastal erosion. And they have actually implemented this particular project in that way. So I believe that I'm personally involved in ensuring that we protect the planet against the very definite climate change that has taken place through mankind's own interferences.
reality that this was the first government in the developed world to have actually set a carbon neutral target by 2050 for us, being followed by others now as well, but it was this country that set that target first and enshrining that in law so that future governments won't be able to change that. I know there's been a debate about trying to get carbon neutral at 2030, but the Environmental Advisory Committee has made it very clear to the government that whilst you pursue these matters as hard as you can, there is very little likelihood of being able to achieve that without a very serious downturn in the economy. So I think it's right to focus on 2050, but to do what we can to improve the environment in every other way. The fact that we are
in front of the bulldozers at Heathrow.
How about when I'm having a question later on, okay? So the reality is that with that, we put in some £92 billion into renewable energy. I believe that over a period of time, to reconcile the issue about the economy, business, as the question was, and actually resolving this crisis, it's important, therefore, to invest in those new technologies, because I do think that the United Kingdom can steal a march on many other countries in being able to develop those technologies. I think technology massively plays a part in this. You even see that over the last 10 or 15 years, the way that even petrol and diesel cars, particularly, have become more fuel efficient with fewer particulates and itself much more efficient. That isn't enough. That is a sign that people, when they're forced, when companies are told how to do this, they will do it, and they will make that technology work for them. There's already aircraft now being designed that will be flying very soon with passengers that are electrically powered, and it is the UK that we want to be at the heart of all of that. And finally, those million extra jobs, there's also a whole issue about planting new forests. Huge amount of money now going into renovation of forests, trees, planting, because this is key to us. But not just planting, also providing for wildlife is very important. We don't forget it's not just about reducing carbon, but making sure our open spaces are properly protected and that wildlife can thrive in those open spaces. That seems to me to be a very, very good purpose. And that, I believe, is what my government belongs to.
I'm so excited to say that in the Labour Manifesto, the green issues come first. Absolutely right that it comes first. And in there, you just see the ambition of change we need and we are putting forward for this country. I've worked in green policy for a long time. And the beauty of what is in the Labour Manifesto is that we don't have that issue of reconciling that consumer-led growth with green issues. Because what we're saying is, we're going to do growth differently. What we're going to do is have a £250 billion investment, a transformational fund, that will not just address climate breakdown, that will not just put us on par with those targets, not of the 2050, but in the 2030s, because we need to do it that quickly. We are going to have that investment in our renewable energies. We're going to address those regional inequalities at the same time. That's what climate justice is about. We're not just going to address the issues of the environment. We're going to do it at the same time of addressing the economy and our economic issues and the imbalance in our economy. Right now, large parts of the country, I'll talk about that happily. So that 250 billion is worth the investment. It's an investment that we can't wait to do. Right now, our government can borrow very cheaply, and they have the most incredible IOU, which is us, 32 million taxpayers. People love to buy our bonds because of that ability to pay that back over time. And what are we going to say to the next generation? What are we going to say to me in 10 years' time if we don't make that move now? Because it will be too late. And I just want to use this opportunity to say thank you to the Green Party who have stood down. And the reason they have stood down is because our current MP has voted against action on climate change again and again, on the increasing green jobs and lowering CO2 emissions. You can look at the record yourself. And that is why they stood down, because they want an MP here who cares about the environment that's core to their politics. And we absolutely cannot move forward or address the economic inequality in this country without doing something about the environment at the same time. So I'm absolutely proud of what our ambitions are for this country. And let me say this, I was at a meeting with huge business, corporations, so the chairman of Siemens and the rest of them. And they were all talking about how the first country that has that 100% renewable energy, where it's cheap, they're going to want to be there. They're going to want to invest in those communities because they also want to do the right thing. So it's absolutely the right time for us as a country to invest in our green infrastructure because the markets have failed to do it and we don't have time to waste. Thank you.
Our second question is on a quite different note, and it goes like this. Tactical voting throughout the country will have the result that the honest preferences of voters are not seen. Would the candidates support a change in the voting system used in parliamentary elections?
Well, there are 1,000 different ways of electing governments and councils all over the world, and there is no perfect system, let's be very clear about that. You have AB, you have straight proportional representation. Sometimes you can spend weeks and months after elections trying to figure out what the government is. All of them are different, and all of them have their merits. But I have a personal view about this. My view is that I believe genuinely for elections for government, first past the post is for us the best system. Back in this room, I'm sure, who don't agree with that. But I believe that because the way I see it is this. When you are elected for a constituency under our system, it becomes about you representing them. And when I hold my surgeries or whenever I go out and speak to people, I don't ask them what they voted. They come to me with a housing problem or they come to me with some problem to do with a national issue or maybe a personal issue generally. You represent them, you try and deal with their case, no matter what they voted. You never ask at any stage, will you vote for me in the next election? I've never uttered those words to anybody, I never would. Why? Because as an elected constituency MP, the moment you are elected, obviously I hope I'm not going to be re-elected, some of you probably don't, to be fair, and I'm sure most of the others also would hope that they did. But I would say to them, you are the MP for that constituency. You deserve the respect that you have to earn, but at the same time, you must represent them. And that means everything. Now, we had a referendum on this only a few years ago, when the Liberals were in coalition. Although sometimes they remember that, I don't know why. But the reality is that we voted on it, and the public voted overwhelmingly to retain that particular system, first past the post, for general elections. Yeah, there are other systems in Scotland and other areas for different types of votes, but for parliamentary elections, I think it restores generally a reasonably strong government. There's been some exceptions now, but we've been faced by a very big issue. But that notwithstanding it, I think it's important and vital. That link with your constituents is absolutely critical. I would not sell it for anything. And I think that first past the post delivers that and delivers the best of whoever, Labour, Conservative, many of Labour MPs are my friends and I watch them, they do exactly the same. This is, I'm elected as MP, my constituency, and I would absolutely represent my constituents to my utmost because they are my constituents regardless of what they voted.
So I started looking at the issue of proportional representation some years ago when I was researching what the drivers of inequality are. So that's my PhD and my research was focused on economic inequality. And what we found when we were looking across the research was that countries that have proportional representation, they have lower levels of inequality. And that's because people are better represented in those parliaments, that different views are better represented. And also people have to compromise. Now, in the world we look at today in our parliamentary system, I'm sure most people would agree that we certainly do need to be working across more, working together. We need to be thinking about not just the extremes, but the median voter, as we would call it in their research. So since then, I've actually wanted us to move towards proportional representation. And honestly, I don't like doing it at the doorstep, asking people to vote tactically. Because I do think people should vote with their hearts. And it's a bit of a misnomer, the constituency MP thing, because actually there are ways in which you can do proportional representation where you still have your a local MP that you bump into and that represents the area. And they still wouldn't necessarily ask, or they shouldn't ask, how you voted if they are your MP. And there's bigger democratic reform that we need. So we need to move towards proportional representation, but we also need to look at the House of Lords. It's archaic that we have people with hereditary peerships that meet peerages, which mean that they weren't, why are they there? Just because they were born for a particular family. That's not right. So we need to think about democratic reform, both in terms of people being open to vote for who they want to vote for and proportional representation, the reform of the House of Lords, and we have to think more seriously about what we do to make sure that we're engaging across the country. This is a weird thing to say here in London and running in London, but a lot of people in the rest of the country are very angry at the way in which it feels like all of the decisions in Westminster are made, and the Scottish are also very upset about this. I would say that we need to do much more to move things like the Treasury to other parts of the country and make sure that we're listening. This is part of the reason that we're in this trouble right now, and the anger around the country, for instance, that has come up through Brexit, because we're not addressing the lack of power that a lot of communities face. So absolutely to democratic reform in terms of proportional representation. But bigger than that, and it should go into our workplaces as well, we need to have people being able to represent their views and having power in all of our communities across the country.
Asking a Liberal Democrat and a member of the Electoral Reform Society as to whether first past the post is suitable is like asking whether the chief rabbi is Jewish. It is in our DNA. It is everything that we believe. The first past the post system produces safe or safe-ish seats, and the result of that is it's very difficult to dislodge MPs of that particular tribe in particular areas, and that means that many people in this country are unrepresented. Now, Mr. Smith is absolutely right. The MP should represent the interests of his constituents, regardless. But I think that applies to access to public services, and I believe that all MPs do that very well. What it does not mean, though, that he or she will represent unchanged their views if constituents feel differently. So, for example, this is a Remain constituency. We voted 50.4% to remain in the EU. But I don't see Mr. Duncan Smith having changed his mind or representing that particular Well, this is a system that's not fit for the 19th century, never mind the 21st. And Faisal is absolutely right. There are many, many other aspects of this. The real democratic deficit of first past the post system is that it leads to extremes of policy in decision making. And it's the inevitable outcome of a proportional system that you would get the majority of the party with the most number of seats would have to work with other parties so you get more consensual decision making and without going to the extremes. Tactical voting, well, it's a matter of holding one's nose, I think, and giving guessing where the second preference will be to avoid getting the third preference in. So it really is an unsatisfactory system. It's not transparent. Now, whilst I'm on my feet, I think the whole panoply of UK government is not fit for the 21st century. And whether it's the preposterous dressing up, the procedures, the language that has been used, particularly recently, or even the layout of the chamber. You know, whilst and before that building is overcome by rats and eventually sinks into the Thames, I think that the whole panoply of government should be looked at from top to bottom, and most especially the
we have combined two very local issues. And so we invite the candidates to comment on these. First of all, the increase in traffic at London City Airport. And secondly, the refurbishment of Whipps Cross Hospital. And we begin with Vice.
So on the City Airport, some years ago I was working at an organisation that did some work on the impact of that airport. And it's actually really bad for local communities. I mean, to have an airport that close to, big urban communities is really damaging, not just in terms of noise and inconvenience, but inconvenience in terms of the traffic, but the air pollution. And you'll be surprised to know that actually that city airport, because it's quite small, it doesn't even increase that much capacity in terms of the flights. And it would be easy enough for people that are using the airport right now to go to Stansted or with Crossrail coming in, go to Heathrow. And we have to do something about the way in which that airport currently operates. I personally think that the plans around expansion and more flights are incredibly damaging for the local community and those of us that sit anywhere near it on those flight paths. So, I really want to push for us to review any plans to expand and have more flights at London City Airport. On Whipps Cross Hospital, which is the hospital I'm sure all of us use, the hospital I was born in, the hospital that I spent the summer in when my mum got run over, the last time I saw my dad and the last time my mum went in as well. It's so important to us. It's such an important community asset. And, I just want to thank all of the people here that have been involved in pushing for the redevelopment of the hospital and the rebuilding of the hospital. We absolutely need that. It's an old hospital, it's crumbling, it needs that new infrastructure. And what I'm worried about in terms of what the plans are right now, and I went to a public meeting in Leytonstone with the redevelopment team. Now, we've heard around 400 million is going to come from government, and the shortfall, as far as I understand, is about 300 million. Now, the issue there on that land is how much of it is going to be sold off and what is going to be built on that land. And when we asked those questions at this public meeting, we were very disappointed with the answers. So how much of that housing is going to be actually affordable, not only to our local community, but to the nurses and the doctors and the staff in that hospital? There's nothing to say that any of that housing will be saved for that staff in that hospital. And the other big thing is that currently the plans for the hospital are less beds than it has right now, even though it's operating at 97% capacity. It makes no sense. And when you ask the question as to why that is, they say it's because there's going to be more community care, more people just coming in and out in a day. Now, we know that our social care budgets have been massively slashed since 2010. So the current plans to redevelop that hospital are not fit for our needs. And I am going to be fighting, absolutely, to rebuild that hospital in a way that suits what our community demands. Not just now, but for 20 years' time as well. Thank you.
emissions, and actually something else, which I hinted at when I told you about Borneo and other fragile environments. The damage we do as tourists, how we pollute the very places that we go to see. I gave the example of Borneo, but there's lots of places where skiing, melting glaciers, we are causing a lot of problem, and air travel is part of it. Now, we can't uninvent air travel, but I suspect that we may well have to do what they've done in Ecuador, which is, in particular with regard to the Galapagos, they restrict the number of people that can actually go there in each year. And that protects that local environment, it protects its flora and fauna, and it does mean that the number of trips are cut down. And I fear, I have to say this, that those who can afford pretty high prices, they will be able to go. I suspect in the fullness of time, we will until the 80s, community hospitals can accommodate non-acute care and convalescence, and it avoids the bed blockade that takes place in the general hospital. And I think that is one of the directions that we should be going, and I think it's one of the directions my party would like to see us go. Thank you.
First of all, the airport. You don't mind saying so. I think sometimes there's a little bit of a sense of self-righteous about air travel. Everybody likes to say how terrible it is, and then they hop on the next aircraft when they have to go to some meeting, some business meeting, or a holiday. We need to get this slightly in perspective. Let's be very clear. What we want is aircraft in the future to be designed so that they fly with very, very low emissions or no emissions, which is wholly feasible and is right on the brink of happening right now. I mentioned that earlier. But the key thing about the airport is that it has provided a huge redevelopment prospect for the east side of London. It has driven investment into areas that would not have happened before. The university has benefited massively for its near location to the airport. And jobs here, I know lots of people that have worked in and around the airport, work in the airport, get jobs from that. So you've got to be very careful when we come out and just say there's something fundamentally wrong with having an airport there. It has benefited the community here, and it has benefited the wider community of East London in a way which was part of the whole process of redevelopment right the way through from Canary Wharf. And this has been very vital. I'm old enough to remember when many of these areas were very undeveloped and very few jobs, and there was not a lot of prospects for people. And this has massively changed. And the airport is part of that. So yes, you want to see a more environmental approach to air travel, but we mustn't just sit here and lecture about the fact that people shouldn't take aircraft when, if, as has been just said, somehow we restrict people, only the people who have money will be able to travel in the air, and the poorest people won't be able to benefit from cheaper air traffic. So we have to be able to get the balance right, and I genuinely believe that I welcome the idea of that airport there. I want to see cleaner air, and I want to see the way that aircraft fly develop. But I do genuinely believe for our area, it has been, by and large, a good thing, certainly in terms of jobs. The second point I want to make is this is not a refurbishment of Whipps Cross Hospital. This is a rebuild of Whipps Cross Hospital. It's not going to be refurbishing the old elements of the hospital, not that huge corridor, not the old Victorian or Edwardian facilities that were there. This is about building in a location elsewhere within the grounds a new hospital. And it will be built to modern standards, therefore will give much better treatment, much easier access, and most of all, much more efficient treatment. When you talk to nurses and doctors, as I was the other day, a surgeon who was from there, and he said, it's really brilliant. I simply remind you that when Labour were in power, they tried to shut that hospital, and we as a community campaigned to keep it open. And the first meeting was here, in the constituency, at Walking Hall. I campaigned with everybody to make sure that stayed open. We stopped it closing, and now I've campaigned with people to get the money. I'm very proud. Yes, there are things to be asked about it, but let's not be mealy-mouthed about it. This is a brilliant idea. It's a great hospital with great doctors and nurses, and we should all back it 100% to this region.
There had to be a question on Brexit, didn't there? So question 4 is this. Leaving your own party's stance aside, how would you campaign in a possible Brexit confirmatory referendum according to your personal convictions? And this goes to Jeff to start.
Before I start on this, I just want to make clear, which I do welcome advances in engineering and new aircraft, but we do actually oppose the expansion of the airport. I want to make that clear. Well, I don't need to leave aside my party's stance on Brexit. I just want to stop it. But the really sad thing about this whole debate is that everybody's lost sight of the vision and values of what I consider to be the most brilliant and imaginative initiative in post-war Europe. achieve much and will achieve more. But you know what the most important thing is to achieve? People are not fighting over territory and economics, which they had been doing for centuries before that. I am the first, and mine is the first generation that's not had to put on an army uniform or to hold a gun in hand. And I think that is right. One of the things we've learned in 3.5 years is just how difficult it is to unpick the relationship that has been established over 45 years. You can't unpick it, whether it's a business relationship, commercial relationship, diplomatic relationship, family relationship, social relationship. We're all intertwined. We've been marrying Europeans. Europeans have been coming here and working. You can't unpick it. And we've just seen just how difficult that is. What for Brexit? We want to leave, but there were at least 3 different forms of Brexit you could have chosen from, and I'm not sure that we've got the right one with the proposal by Mr. Johnson. So, you know, we all work, as I say, many of us work with European colleagues, many of us are married, and, you know, I think that we have made people, European people in our midst, very unwelcome in the way that we've carried out this debate. And I think that that is a very sad thing. Just let me address the nonsense that has been levelled at us, that by stating that we would revoke Article 50 is somehow illiberal or undemocratic. We will only do that if we secure a majority, because people will be telling us that's what they want. It may not happen. We will then campaign in a confirmatory referendum to ensure that Brexit is undone. That is my mission. That's what I want to do, and that's what I urge you, and why I urge you to vote for me, because I am a Remainer. I'm the true voice of Remain in this constituency.
Well, the question is, how would I vote? I think that was the question. Should there be this proposed second referendum? I simply want to say that I think it's, even if it was available to us, it was a sham choice. Because and I think this goes into line with the Labour Party position at the moment, which is that they're going to renegotiate yet again another agreement, come back with that agreement, but most of them don't believe in it and want to vote to remain. So the choice on the ballot paper will be not leave or remain.
It's what we want.
Their deal. It will be their deal and or remain. And I say, well, that people were given a referendum in which there was a choice between leaving and remaining. And if you did have a second referendum, why isn't leave still on that ballot paper? Because that's what people were asked originally, and they'll now be denied that choice. That's the first comment I'd make about the policy. It seems an absurdity to go away and negotiate and then want to vote against the deal that you actually negotiated and have only that choice on the ballot paper. So I think the whole idea, don't worry about it, all right? The reality is, I think, therefore, that our job is to be directed by the first referendum. You cannot go on having referendums about this again and again and again, one after another, because you don't get the choice.
Why not?
Well, then when do you stop? The question is, when do you stop? You have one, you have another one, and everybody goes slightly the other way. Then you say, let's best of 3, best of 4, best of 5. It is an absurdity. We need to get Brexit done. Okay, but you don't agree with me, that's fine. But I have to tell you, the majority of the British people voted to leave. And that's
Shut up.
okay, right. I've just said I'm not going to vote in any referendum that you conjure up which has no leave on the ballot paper. I can't vote for a deal that I thought was rubbish, and I certainly couldn't vote to remain because I voted to leave because I think the European Union has taken a decision to go in the wrong direction, over-centralised, over-taxed, over-regulated, and more importantly, the single currency is destroying many countries around the European Union, and I think that's its failure, and it needs to change. So my point is very simple. I believe that democratically, if you ask the public a question, you have to act on it. And the problem has been Parliament is too full of people who want to block that decision. We are
And you know what, just that whole confrontation, 4 years ago we didn't have this divide. It's been so badly managed. It makes me so angry that it's caused so much damage to us. The truth is we agree. We've wasted so much time. I voted Remain, and in the second referendum, let me be clear, I will campaign to Remain, because whatever options I've seen put forward aren't as good as what we have right now. Saying that, it breaks me that for 3.5 years we've been spending this time going round in circles trying to unscramble scrambled eggs, when we should have been paying that attention, putting that money into the other crises we face in our health system, in our education system, with climate breakdown. And actually I'm really pleased the way the Labour Party has got on this for the second referendum. Keir Starmer has been our Brexit Secretary for more than 3 years, whilst the Tories have been switching through them. We've had one guy that's looked at it, he knows what he's doing, he's going to go negotiate a credible leave option, not one that blows a hole in our economy, and that will be put alongside a Remain option for people to vote on, to vote on in 6 months. And yes, it is going to take time, and it is another referendum, but ultimately we have to put more democracy on this issue. Otherwise we're not going to solve it. And this whole thing about getting Brexit done, please, this is just the first part. This will just be the end of the beginning if they get through this withdrawal bill. Then it's the trade deals. And do you know what? Trade deals don't go through Parliament in the same way. We give them a blank cheque. We give them a blank cheque with our NHS and everything. Our trade deals open up everything in this country. So no, I don't want that to happen. I was really deeply upset when I thought that Boris Johnson's deal was going to go through. And I'm so glad that we have this general election now, so that we have this last chance. We have this last chance on Brexit, on the environment, on our education and health system. And I for one, I'm really proud of saying that the Labour Party is offering that second referendum after all of the lies that have been told. After all the lies that have been told. And you know what? 3.5 years ago I would have been happy with the compromise. I wrote about what we could do. I looked at it closely, even though I didn't want it to happen. But you know what? It's been an absolute mess for 3.5 years. An absolute mess. No, the Conservatives have been in charge. You don't get to blame the Labour Party when the Conservatives have been in charge. And you know what? Ultimately, okay, I've been around here, but okay, so and this is the thing, and this is how ugly it's got. But the thing that I would say is that alongside, I think sometimes people make this mistake, and I think that the Lib Dems are making this mistake, is that Brexit is the only problem we have. It is not. And there's a number of problems that led to Brexit, including austerity, which the Lib Dems supported. So let's stop Brexit, but let's also change society more broadly. Thank you.